What's happening, guys? Chael Sonnen here, and you need to know when you're the greatest podcast in the world today, they got a name for you. They don't call you a great podcast. They call you the Gentleman Podcast. Beat that if you can.
Welcome, everyone, to the number one up-and-coming podcast, as Gary says in the Western Hemisphere, the Gentleman Podcast. This is a huge episode. It is our 10th episode, spectacular. Listen, we're only 10 deep, and we're just pushing out this content, this can't-miss content. We have these extremely tremendous guests coming on every week, and listen, sky's the limit. On this episode, we have some NBA news. We're going to be breaking down a couple of the fights on tomorrow's UFC card. We're going to have a very, very special interview with Chael P. Sonnen, who, as you've seen, gave us the intro for this episode. And, of course, as always, we're going to have our core four. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
All right. Before we start, remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms as well.
YouTube, Twitter, Instagram.
And, guys, listen, comment, too. If you see something you do like or you don't like, we love the criticism. Give it to us, please.
And throw us some core four ideas. I mean, we're not that – we can use some suggestions also.
Shout out to Robbie Fresh with the Monica Puig, man. I know I wasn't the only one, man.
Robbie Fresh. Good to hear from you.
All right, let's get us rolling.
Let's do this. NBA, Gary, start us off.
So today, there's rumors going around that the start date was originally, as I said, the last podcast, it was spoken about being July 25th. Now they're saying the latest drop-dead date is July 31st for the NBA to start. Now, another rumor going around is that 22 teams will be asked to come to the bubble, which means that there will be teams that will not make it there, the teams that are eliminated. Now, you may be asking yourself, 16 teams make the playoffs. So what does that mean? The March Madness-style tournament will be in play.
Woo!
They want to do single elimination to get the 7th and 8th seeds to make the playoffs, which I think is a great idea. They say I read 8 games they want to play, and then they're going to run to the playoffs, and they'll do that tournament style, which is great. You'll see guys like Luka, Zion, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard all get a chance to showcase their skills. I think this is a great idea.
Guys, I'm pumped for this, especially, honestly, with this whole baseball thing. I forgot about baseball at this point. I don't want to think about it, unfortunately.
We're on a high today. We're not going to bring up baseball.
No, exactly. I'm past it. At this point, it's like an ex-girlfriend. I don't even want to think about it. I'm looking to the future. Looking to the future, and the future's looking bright with basketball. I'm excited about this.
Well, not only is basketball coming back on July 31st, but they also said that next season is going to start around Christmas time, the earliest, the latest in January. So that's also good news for next season. And as you know from last episode, I said that I'm a very big fan of tournament styles, especially March Madness. So listen, I'm looking forward to this basketball season coming up.
So this whole new format, I'm not gonna lie with you guys though, it brings the best of both worlds as far as the NCAA and the NBA. Everybody already knows that the NCAA tournament was already canceled off the bat too.
Unfortunately.
So, everybody who was looking forward to the whole tournament style vibe and all that, they'll be getting it with the NBA as well.
So to piggyback off of what Pete said, how they would do it would be the finals would end about the 2nd or 3rd week in September, and then they would go to the NBA draft the next week, and then they'd go to free agency, and then in October, and then try to roll the season onto Christmas. I think Christmas is really for casual fans when basketball starts, when they have the big slate of games. When they had the strike season a few years ago, that's when they started the year was on Christmas. So I think that's where they would try to the best case scenario for them.
How soon are we talking about free agency before the season now?
I want to say October, first week of October. They want to do it. Don't worry, Knicks aren't getting anybody good. So.
Damn.
Eddie, comments, thoughts?
Every dog has his day. Eventually, we'll have ours, man.
Eventually.
LaMelo Ball.
So.
Don't stop me. Don't stop me right now, Gary, man. Come on, man. There's a whole – no. Get us Chris Paul for fuck's sakes, man.
Don't take my idea. That was my idea last year.
Man.
Now you make fans
I
want
don't
to
care
take
if
it.
it's your
No,
idea or not, man. No, man. We need finally some veteran leadership at the point guard position, man. You want to ask any Knicks fan in the country. Ask what they lacked the past decade or so, man. Leadership at the point guard position, man. Pete, do you agree?
I agree, but I ain't getting my hopes up. You know, we're always supposed to get all these big name free agents, and they never come here. So,
thank God for the Yankees. That's all I'm saying, man.
I mean, we're not even gonna have a baseball season. So,
can we stop talking about a team that's not going to be playing basketball
Seriously.
for Christmas time?
Let's
Moving on.
You don't know that.
hey,
Anyways, yeah.
moving on. We have a UFC card tomorrow. Brian, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, this isn't the most star-studded card that we've ever seen. But, listen, in a world where there's no sports, we have sports. So, I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. And I got to be honest, listen, sometimes these are the best cards, the ones you're not expecting when you have, low expectations and then all of a sudden they're incredible. This may be one of those. And I think, there's a very high chance that this is, especially with the main event. We have Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Burns. Who? Yeah, Gilbert Burns. This guy, do not sleep on him. I'm telling you,
Underrated.
This guy's a straight killer. And in one of our past episodes, I actually had him going over Tyron Woodley. I think Woodley takes too much time off in between fights. Obviously, it's clear, his head wasn't there in the last fight when he lost to Usman. He was focusing on his rap career. I just think his time has passed. And I don't think when he was in his prime, I don't think he fought enough. And he had a real chance to be something special, one of the top-ranked. He could have been pound for pound at one point. But I don't think he's going to get to that point again.
How long of a layoff has he had?
In between fights, it's almost like a year in between fights with him.
Listen, he's saying he's focused now. He keeps releasing these videos showing how focused he is, and he's gonna, absolutely kill Burns. And
the game's evolved.
It
the game
has
evolves constantly.
It has, but I mean,
it's a PR thing, though, man.
He says he's ready for this fight. He's in shape. He's focused. So we'll see what version of Woodley we get tomorrow.
I would hope he's ready because this guy Gilbert Burns, man, he is
no
joke. This guy, he's powerful. He's strong. I mean, he'll finish you. I mean, he has multiple ways to win this fight.
My thing with this fight is if Woodley's got he's on American Ninja Warrior. I think he's on some show with The Rock.
The Titans, something.
The Titans, yeah. If his focus was there, I'd pick him. I think I'm gonna lean with Woodley because he's the former world champ. He wants to get that title shot, but his focus he's just too many places. He's just talking so much, talking about fighting Kobe. I don't know if his head is there. And I heard some great things. He's went to MMA Thailand before this whole pandemic hit. He really wants to go for it, but I don't know.
So what's everyone's official on the record pick for the main event? I'm leaning slightly towards Woodley.
Woodley for the experience, bro.
Woodley is the safe pick. I'm going with Burns. I feel really good about him. He's coming off of a win over Damian Maia. I know Damian Maia is not, at the top of his game, but he finished him, which is impressive. He's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak. I feel really good about Gilbert Burns. I really do. I think this is, and I hope that this will launch him into, relevance where he should be.
So
who does Vegas have?
Woodley.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point before I make my pick. Ever since we started this podcast, the underdog has won in every main event.
It's true.
Yo, you know what? You're right. You are freaking right, bro.
True,
the underdog has won in every main event.
I was talking about that on Twitter not too recently. It's the first time in history that 4 straight cards that the underdog has won the main event. It's crazy.
Overeem was the underdog in the Walt Harris fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
So I'm gonna go with Burns. Just because I'm gonna go off my point that I don't know how focused Woodley is. And for a guy who just who's just lost his belt to fight a guy who's not that big of a name, you don't know where his focus is going to be at right then and there. You know, he still thinks he should fight Usman or one of these other top guys. He was training for Leon Edwards. Burns, this is a big opportunity for him. Main event on ESPN against a former world champion. I'm going to go with him.
Gary, the underdog streak ends tomorrow. Me and Eddie are picking Woodley. You and Brian are picking Burns. So we'll see who ends up being right.
Let's do that. You know what? Let's do those push-ups. 25 push-ups to whoever loses.
Well, I got to reach out to that Twitter. Oh, who's that guy I challenged?
No, I'm talking about us
TKO.
and you. Me and Gary and you and Eddie.
All right.
Let's do it.
Eddie is going to be praying that Woodley wins tomorrow.
Woodley, you better fucking win this shit, man. You better win this.
So we got a deal next episode. We'll do the push-ups.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
this is going to be embarrassing, man.
A gentleman's bet, yes.
Gentlemen's bet. I just did 100 push-ups before this episode, so I mean, 30
We're not worried.
really nothing.
Brag a little bit.
75
push-ups isn't a thing.
Yeah, 75% of the podcast is good with this.
But,
on that note, ladies and gentlemen, coming up is a cannot miss interview. I know I say that a lot, but you cannot miss this. We have the American Gangster from West Lynn, Oregon, the greatest combat sports athlete of all time, the bad guy,
Brian's
Uncle
idol.
Chael. Yes, my idol, Uncle Chael. Chael P. Sonnen is going to be in the building. I'm telling you, this is incredible, guys. You don't want to miss this. There he is!
Hey.
The American Gangster.
The band is back together. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, Chael?
First and foremost, we wanted to thank you for giving us time out of your very busy schedule.
Stop.
It
Keep
means
it coming.
the world to us.
Good, man. Congrats on the show.
Thank you very, very much. So,
Not easy to do a show, particularly in quarantine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
what better time to start a show than right now, right?
Well, I would actually agree with you on on time to start a show. Yeah, man, people are at home looking for content. But I'm just saying it's difficult to do. You got to know some technology for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. You got it down, Pat. You've been doing this for a while. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is coming in August will be the 10-year anniversary of one of my favorite fights, and that is you against Anderson Silva at UFC 117. So we were all together watching this fight, and
We were.
I can't even describe to you the emotions. It was a roller coaster of emotions during that fight. So you pretty much not only wrote the blueprint on trash talk in the UFC, but you wrote the blueprint on how to beat Anderson Silva, who up until that point, he was untouchable in UFC. He couldn't be hit, he couldn't be hurt, and you wrote that blueprint. So I want to know, what did you know that no other fighter knew going into that fight?
You know, I didn't have some secret about him. He was a great competitor, by the way. I don't dispute the outcome of those matches. I beat him up both times, and but he was a great competitor. I have to give him credit for that. He hung in there the whole time. I had a couple of things going into that, and I don't even know if they're accurate, but I believed them at that time. But I was also a lot angrier prior to retirement. I had a chip on my shoulder. You know, the business in that sport will just do that to you. But I thought all the guys that he beat sucked. I thought the fact that he was, you know, they were doting him around as a guy that had won 12 straight fights. Who gives a damn? When did 12 anything become a big number? I couldn't believe it. And then half the guys he had beat, by half, I've got 90-some% of the guys he beat had been released. They weren't even good enough to keep their spot on the roster, but they're walking them out and calling these things world title fights, man. I just thought the whole thing was a scam. And as far as me having the blueprint to beat him, they've set that cage up since 1993, and nobody's found an answer for a guy that throws you on your back and bludgeons you. That one has worked from 1993 to 2020. So I don't know how much credit I should get. I'm a great wrestler taking on a guy who's never wrestled before. By the way, that was a little arrogant when I called myself a great wrestler. I apologize for that. I'm just saying, though, as far as having a blueprint, man, this thing's been out from day one.
True. You made it relevant, however.
I appreciate that. That part I'll take.
Yes, and you did beat. You won 5 out of 7 rounds with, on most people's list, the GOAT. And I know you recently came out with your own list of the greatest of all time. Mine was very similar to yours, different order, but you brought up a good point. And I feel like in his prime, Anderson, he wasn't beating the same level of competition of guys like GSP in his prime. So me and you, we both had GSP on number one for pound. That's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a little tough, because the time really does matter.
Yeah.
Look at a guy like Tito, for example. Tito is more than happy to tell anybody that's willing to listen that he was the world champion at one point. But that world championship that he had looks a lot different than the one that I tried to have, right? He was fighting in the organization that had 36 guys under contract. 36 guys. The company right now has 556 guys under contract. They were also calling it a world title. It was nothing more than a regional show that happened to have international distribution. So I only share with you that to say you were a world champion in a really weird time. I mean, look, anybody that won the Olympics prior to 1904, that's a tough sell. They were holding the Olympics every weekend. It was just some guys at a bar walking outside. I'm just sharing with you, there are different times, and there's different meaningful periods, and there's times where you can go beat 12 guys straight, but there's also times where you can't, right? I mean, there's times where it's iron on top of iron, and your secrets and your tricks that came in a little bit in front of everybody else are caught up to. I just think that's a relevant fact when you're looking back to talk about who the greatest is. For St. Peter to come in, take out everybody of his time, some of them twice over, then to beat Johnny Hendricks on his way out, and Hendricks goes and runs with the torch, which means he met the next generation, then to slide up a weight class and take out a whole nother generation. Come on, man. Nobody's done that. People try to put Jon Jones in. Jon Jones is fantastic, by the way. He's a top 3, no question, even if you're a Jones hater, which I am. I still can't take him to the top 3. That would just sound silly. But Jones, who doesn't even have the balls to change weight classes, and then you want to put him against the guy that cleaned out 2 different weight classes over 17 years? Come on, man. The greatest ever is George, period.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Which brings me to my next point. I want to talk a second about UFC's resident criminal, Jon Jones. And I know recently...
Can I use that? Can I borrow that line?
Please.
That's a great line.
I'll be honored. It seems as though a little bit of a rivalry has been renewed via Twitter. And I would love to see, personally, what you're responding to. But he blocked me on Twitter in 2013, so I have no idea.
Sure.
Anyways.
Mr. Tough Guy is also Mr. Sensitive, right? A little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, right? So when is this guy going to smarten up? Because the last time he stepped in a cage with you, he lost a toe.
Yes.
The next time, he may lose his life.
Yes.
When is he going to smarten up?
By the way, I should mention for you, I was a middleweight that went up to fight him on short notice. I didn't think it would have been much different had I been adjusted to that weight class, I might add for you. But, no, he's not going to smarten up, man. It's really hard to fix stupid. And I will tell you this, if you get a guy in life, just a human being at all, and they got a pile full of money, they will equate that to intelligence. And if you ever try to go, you're doing everything wrong. Let me tell you how to do this right. They go, but look at all the money. Obviously, I'm doing something right. And that's one of those things that you're just going to bang your head on the wall and go, fair enough. You go that way and I'll go this way. But John's one of these tough spots. I mean, he does not know the business and he doesn't take time to learn the business. And he's done just fine. He's done just fine. No question. Competitively, he's done more than fine. Almost perfect. The business side, he didn't know what he's doing. I've sat down with him before when I was doing The Ultimate Fighter, his manager as well, who was trying to recruit me and sign me. They're telling me the deals they got, John, and I'm just standing there nodding and going, and I'm thinking, wait, you guys don't know what the hell you're talking about. You signed that deal. You're the champion of the world. I'm not the champion. I just pretended to be by taking a fake belt on SportsCenter one day. My contract crushes your contract, John. I didn't say anything. I just listened. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have any friends in the business to call up and go, hey, how'd you do this? What was said here? Where are the commas and the zeros at? He's out there thinking he's got everything figured out. He doesn't even know which way is up.
Yeah.
Well, it came out today that he asked for $30 million, right, to fight Francis and move up.
I didn't know
something like 25 to 30 million. Dana White said today.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But I mean, what do you do, right? What do you even say? What do you say other than no?
It's such a shame to quote a great movie, A Bronx Tale. The worst thing and the saddest thing in the world is wasted talent. And, to see what this guy's done inside the octagon, you can't even touch it. But it's outside the octagon, his character and, the decisions he's made. I'm sorry. I can never put him on my greatest of all time list under any circumstances because I look at both inside and outside the cage. So It's sad, but what are you going to do?
It's a little hard. It's a little hard with all those failed steroid tests to then come back and go, he's the greatest of all time. You know, it is a question. He's clean now. Aside from the picogram, he is clean right now. And I thought he lost his last 2 fights. My own opinion. The Santos fight was very close.
I agree.
It definitely goes to Reyes.
New champion. The Reyes fight was flat out robbery. He lost 3 rounds. He won 2 rounds. That couldn't have been any clearer. Stevie Wonder could have seen that. Any joke you want to insert there. He lost that fight. So, and now he's trying to get out of that fight. He wants out of that fight so bad. He's calling out Blachowicz. He's calling out Adesanya. He's trying to go up to heavyweight and get some scam going up there. It's a little bit weird, man. You got to fight Reyes. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Really quick, I'm going to turn the topics here. Submission Underground this Sunday. I'm not going to lie. I'm very pumped for this. We got a couple of big matchups. My favorite, the one I'm looking forward to the most, is Brent Primus and Jake Shields. What do you want to say about that?
You get it. I appreciate you saying that. You know, these are 2 guys, and Jake Shields has gotten his credit in this career, but maybe not enough. In all fairness, for all the work Jake's done, not only in the world of grappling, but, coaching, giving back, getting on airplanes, living out of hotels, training, getting all these different experience, makes it to the highest levels from the PFL to the Strikeforce champion to a UFC title fight with George St. Pierre, the most highly attended MMA event of all time. He really doesn't quite get the credit he fully deserves. And then the same thing could be said about Primus. Bellator champion, the guy's lost 1 fight ever, is 3-2 against Michael Chandler, who's amongst the great 155-pounders to ever do the sport. I mean, Primus is the real deal. He also got his black belt in jiu-jitsu in 6 years. And for guys that grapple, they will tell you that is extremely fast. In fact, maybe the fastest I've ever even heard of. But this guy absorbs everything. He's very curious. He's very motivated. He works very hard. And the compliment that I would give Jake in front of everything else, including his skills, is he has an iron will. Jake Shields wants to win, and you are not going to throw him off guard. The same thing goes for Primus, man. That one's a wash. Primus is never going to lose sight of trying to beat you. No matter what happens, if there's time left, he's coming at you. I agree, that is the match.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Jake Shields been around for a while. Take nothing away from him, but Brent Primus, I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. I was lucky enough to have seen him win the title at Madison Square Garden the same night you fought Vanderlei, and I'm really excited to see where the future goes. Where he goes in the future.
Yeah. Oh, I fully agree. He's a guy that's been pretty busy. He won the championship that night. He came back against Chandler in Hawaii, returns the title to Chandler. He hasn't fought less than a main event since. He hasn't gone out of the first round since. Flew to England one time, finished a guy in a minute and 23 seconds. Flew to Ireland, finished a guy in a minute and 43 seconds. Both of them submissions off of his back. Submissions off your back, I mean, if you want to take it back to 1993 to 1995, that happened a lot. You don't see a lot of that anymore, particularly early. You see guys that get tired, that want out, that give you the back. Oh, he rear naked choke. Man, those guys are pretending. The rear naked, nobody gets caught in a rear naked choke or a guillotine or, for most part, any submission. They've had enough. They show one of their limbs, and they get to go home in one piece. Brent Primus is putting guys away in less than 2 minutes with submissions. That's before anybody's hurt. That's before the guy's ready to check out. He's just that good.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, Chael?
What's happening?
I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to go back for a second, back to 2011. Actually, it's a little bit of a funny story I wanted to share with you. The UFC card in Philly that year. Do you know what number that was?
133.
133.
It was in
That's
August.
Right. August 2011, correct. We actually all attended that card. And after the event was over, we were in the parking lot trying to, I guess there was a little bit of a traffic jam. We were trying to get home, and we were stuck in the parking lot. And all of a sudden, you, Chael, randomly walked up to our car and handed us this little card that Brian's holding up right now to go to an after party, Club Pulse. Do you have any recollection of that at all? It was such a random encounter, but it was a pretty awesome encounter.
Not only do I remember it, I remember what I was wearing. I had on a yellow shirt, of all things. I remember that. I remember Club Pulse. I remember trying to get people to come. I remember the great time we had at Club Pulse. I remember that whole thing. And maybe only because I've only been to Philly for a UFC one time. That was Rashad versus Tito, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Vito was a co-main event.
To answer your question, yes, I even know the car that I was in, and I remember that traffic jam. We couldn't get out of that damn thing. I don't know if that was post-fight. I want to say that was post, weigh-in.
No,
it was post-fight after
It was
the
after the fight, yeah.
After the whole fight was done, okay.
Yeah, we were trying to get home.
Yeah, I attempted to stick out of Pete's sunroof. I was a little heavier at the time, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs to call you over. And you blessed us with one of these cards. Unfortunately, we weren't 21, so we couldn't get into the club. But it was a memory.
Some of us were,
Yeah,
but some of us weren't.
Sorry.
So.
But the reason why there was a traffic jam is because the Taylor Swift concert was right next
Taylor
door.
Swift concert, yes.
So
Really?
the UFC fans, the UFC fans and the Taylor Swift fans were all trying to get out at the same time. The shows ended at the exact same time.
That would explain it. Yes, the great Taylor Swift.
Well, while we're in the past right now, it's something I wanted to bring up going back to WEC days. Actually, WEC 36. We were all fans of you, Chael, even back in the WEC days before you were in the UFC. And you actually had, I believe, the last middleweight fight in the WEC before the UFC absorbed that division. And it was against Paulo Filo, as you know, for the title. And we're all, firm believers that you are a champion, and obviously you won that fight. He missed weight, so that wasn't your fault. But I just wanted to hear a little bit about your thoughts about that night and that whole experience, about how everything went down.
Well, first off, thank you for saying you were fans, man. That means a lot to me, and I love these old memories, so keep bringing them up. That was my life, so all you got left right when she retires memory. So I really appreciate that. But, yeah, exactly right. So Paulo and I were going to fight for the championship. WEC was going to roll into the UFC, so that was your final chance to be the WEC champion. You're going to go away as the final champion. It was kind of a little cool thing, but Paulo missed weight, and he was the champion. Yeah. So the way the rules worked in Florida at that time, they actually changed them because of this incident, but at that time, if either guy doesn't make weight, including the championship is not on the line. Because of that, every commission has changed, and if the champion misses weight, the challenger can still win the title. So at any rate, semantical issue, but I won the fight, and Paulo sent me the belt. And I got picked up by the UFC. They were so upset at Paulo Filo for what had happened there, how weird the fight was, just the whole experience, that they didn't pick him up. And that was his first loss. He was like 17-0. That made him 17-1. Pretty impressive record. Number 2 ranked guy in the world, and he didn't get brought over. And I think for the most part, it ended his career. I know he did have a couple of more fights, but I don't think he was training for him. I saw some footage. It didn't look like the same guy. Sent me the belt. Never heard from him again. And last year, so that would represent, 8 years later, I get a random video sent to my phone. It was a video that Paulo made for me and sent it to me. Got my number somewhere and sent it to me. And it was great. He looked great. He looked like he was in shape. He had a full beard, was the only thing different. Had some very nice things to say, reminisced a little bit. And but it made me feel good. I thought, well, that was a cool thing. How cool somebody from your past, comes back and just says hello in the form of a video. But aside from that, I don't have a Paulo update.
Wow.
That's a pretty cool story.
He got shot somewhere along the way.
Oh, wow.
He was at a party in Brazil. I'm probably 90% right on this story. It was a long time ago I read, but he was at a party in Brazil, and I don't even know if it was on purpose. It was like his own friend, and something happened, but there was a firearm, and he got shot. It went into the leg. So he was okay, but his career was never the same after that.
Damn.
Chael, what's going on? Going back to your past, can you talk about Team Quest a little bit?
Oh, God.
And all, the great fighters you trained with, and you were there at the prime of, Team Quest, and you were, with Hall of Famers and legends. So I always wanted to know, what it was like training over there.
Love Team Quest. Thank you for the shout-out on that. And I will tell you, not only was that a who's who where I could name drop and impress you with some of the guys' resumes, but I didn't know that at the time. That was just the gym that was by my house. That was just the gym that we went to. Dan Henderson and Randy Couture were training partners. Randy moved to Oregon. Dan came up from California, and they just got together and trained every day. Every day at 3 o'clock, they would train. So I found out about it, made phone calls, got myself in. So it was the three of us, and that lasted for 2 years. And we were just training wrestling. Greco-Roman wrestling, the Olympics were coming up. And as soon as that was done, I just showed up at 3 for practice, and they weren't wearing shoes, and they threw me some gloves. They said, well, we're doing this now. So the three of us just every day at 3 got together and did our best to learn fighting. We had no coach. We had no training system, but we knew how to work hard. We knew how to get really tired. And that's what we did every day. And Randy went on, he had already been the UFC champion, but he went back and reclaimed it. Dan went over to Pride, became their double champion. Yep. And I was looking for my own opportunity, but through that, it started to grow. Eventually, we did get a coach. We got a new facility. We got a bunch of teammates. So, I never fully appreciated Team Quest it was kind of for me like a fine wine. It got better with time. And as I look back on it now, I mean, we had BJ Penn in the room and Boss Rutan and Don Fry and just to name. We had Rico Rodriguez and Randy and Evan Tanner and myself and Lieben and Ed Herman. And this was just on a daily basis. And that's who you're sparring with. You know, hey, grab a new partner. It goes from hard to harder in that room. And I didn't fully appreciate it. We had a great coach, great facility. I didn't appreciate it. It was just what I knew. It was just the gym by my house. And I look back, if I had any regret to Team Quest, it's that I didn't bring a camera in and just document some of this, right? There'd be people out there that would wonder, what would happen if Dan Henderson fought Evan Tanner when they were both in their primes? Or what would happen between Evan Tanner and Matt Lindland? And you'd have all these questions like, well, I could have had those answers. I saw it every single day, but the world wasn't in the same place. By example, an iPhone. Everybody's got a camera right now on their phone. iPhones weren't invented yet. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where I do wish I would have captured some of that footage.
Dan Henderson doesn't get enough credit in like all these GOAT debates. The stuff his resume goes up there with anybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah. I fully agree with you. When you want to talk about a pound for pound best, it's very hard to not bring Dan Henderson into that because he's one of the few guys that actually went different weights. He beat Fedor, a heavyweight champion. He beat Big Nog, a heavyweight champion. Light heavyweight, he did some great work. I believe he even won the Strikeforce Championship at light heavyweight, but he was also the Pride champion down at middleweight, which was his true weight class. He's beaten champions or been a champion in 3 different weights. It's very tough to talk pound for pound and not look at a guy who actually tested the theory and came out on top.
Yeah. Chael, who are some of your biggest influences, whether it be boxing or any other sport, like coming up in the ranks?
The guys I looked up to, I think I named for you. Randy Couture was our leader. Dan Henderson, Matt Lindland. They were older than me. You know, the younger guy always looks up to the older guys. I met Matt Lindland. He had just graduated college, and I was going to my junior year of high school, and he returned to that town, and somehow our coach, Dave Sanville, got Matt Lindland to be the assistant coach. So now all of a sudden you got one of the best guys in the world as a 17-year-old high school kid that you're going to work out with every day. So that was just a real natural fit. Matt ended up moving to Nebraska, and Dan Henderson and Randy Couture came to town. It's one of these things, but those would be the 3 guys that I would say I admired the most. I would look at what they were doing training-wise, maybe Randy in front of all of that. Randy was very disciplined with his training. He would write everything down. Then he would take notes after the fact. He was very organized in terms of his training. Nothing was sporadic. Nothing just happened. But those would be the guys that I would look to and go, well, how would have they handled this? Okay, that's what I need to go do. Something along those lines.
You know, a lot of people talk about your wrestling, but you also have boxing in your resume as well. Do you speak about that and your love for boxing?
Post career, I then got jiu-jitsu. I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, if you don't mind bragging. But it took so long. Man, that was hard work. That was such a great moment to get that black belt. Oh, good. Thank goodness. All these days on the mat, if I wanted to be over, can now be over. It was like the best feeling. But, yeah, I was an amateur boxer, and I wanted to be in the Olympics, and that was a big deal to my father, so it was a big deal to me. And in 2000, I was going to try out for the Olympic boxing team, and I wouldn't have made it in all fairness, but I would have been one of the guys. I'd have been top 5. And we decided to go for wrestling instead. Now, wrestling, I could have made it. On any given day, I could have made it. I ended up an alternate, but I could have made it. But that was the path I chose. And then I had one more year at college. So after 2001, I fully got into MMA.
Just to go back to that, what made you go for your black belt in jiu-jitsu?
Well, you know, I was really just in jiu-jitsu more than anything. I was just in jiu-jitsu. So we did a lot of jiu-jitsu, and then we talked to the coach, Fabiano Scherner, and we said, hey, coach, we got a lot of MMA guys here. This needs to be an MMA gym as well. And Fabiano was a 10-time jiu-jitsu world champion. He had a stint through MMA and the UFC himself, but that wasn't what he wanted to teach. So we had to keep going to him and say, coach, and this Team Quest closed, and Fabiano was a Team Quest guy, so Fabiano opens his own spot, but doesn't end up doing MMA. We said, coach, please, coach us in MMA too. So he finally said, okay, added those classes to the schedule. The gym grew, got all the right equipment, put the cage in there, did the whole bit. But it was still primarily a jiu-jitsu gym. In fact, at the time it was named Gracie Baja. Now it's named American Top Team, but by example, it was primarily a jiu-jitsu gym. So we were doing jiu-jitsu every day. Well, you put enough years together, you enter a few competitions, you get a few belt promotions, eventually you end up with a black one.
Now, Chael, you've been through the whole evolution of MMA, you've seen it grow. What are you like? What's your biggest takeaway? Because you've been in it from the underground days where it wasn't really a big thing to now where it's like on ESPN. Tomorrow's cards on ESPN. So like, what's your biggest takeaway from like the evolution really of this whole sport?
Two different interpretations of that. First off, just from the technical standpoint, I've been very impressed how MMA has become its own sport. I really thought, I was stuck in the 90s, but the way we would do that is you'd go box somewhere on Monday night and you'd kickbox on Tuesday and you'd wrestle on Wednesday and you'd work on submissions on Thursday, something like this. And if you could get yourself a match, and there was very few opportunities. I mean, even the UFC at that time was doing 6 shows a year. So opportunity was tough, particularly on the regional scene. But if you could get a match, you would then try to put all those skills together at one time. There was nowhere you could go that was called an MMA gym, and there was nobody out there proclaiming themselves to be an MMA coach. It was no, I'm a stand-up coach, I'm a ground coach. You figure it out. But when your opponent has to do the same thing, it was fair. That's just the way that it was. I've been very impressed how the sport has changed, how coaches have opened their mind, start to adapt all the skills into one set. One set we're now seeing 9 and 10 and 11-year-old boys and girls training because they have future aspirations. But also, I think more of my surprise has probably come from the business side of it. The fact, to your point, that it is on ESPN as soon as tomorrow night. I never thought there would be a day. I do some stuff with commentating, but if anybody would have asked me when I was a kid, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I never would have said commentate MMA because that wasn't even a thing. MMA wasn't on TV. The words MMA didn't exist until 2001. And, more of those opportunities just were not real. To watch how fast it's grown, to watch the leadership and the decisions that they've made, changing people's minds as well as changing laws, in all fairness, that's been more surprising to me than anything. More impressive.
Chael, it's Big Eddie P over here. Thanks again for having the time to talk with us, my man.
Yeah, wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, not to bring you down a little trip down memory lane once again, but I mean, the rest of the world, well, most of the world knows you as probably one of the top GOATs as far as the MMA is concerned. Now, having been brought up in wrestling since the age of 9, 10 years old, becoming an All-American at the University of Oregon and actually being a runner-up twice for the Pac-10, how serious of an interest, if you did ever come in pursuing a career in professional wrestling, considering that supposedly you did have a tryout for WCW back in 98.
Yeah, so 1998, you're exactly right. I was an All-American that year. Relevance to the story, I was in great shape. And so there used to be something called the Monday Night Wars, which is Vince's product versus the WCW product. And they would go head-to-head at the same time slot on Monday nights. And I did what everybody else did, which is I watched it with buddies, and every time there was a commercial, you switched over to the other program. So WCW would advertise a 1-800 number. Call this number if you want to be a pro wrestler. Come out to the power plant. So one day I just called the number. And let's see here. What did I have to do? It was a 3-day trial. You had to go to the actual training center in Atlanta. I told my dad, I said, hey, there's an opportunity. I got 2 years of college left, but summer's coming up. Maybe I should shoot out there for the summer, see if I can get something going for, once I graduate. So my dad was in, bought me a plane ticket, organized a hotel, and I went out there. It was so difficult. This comes back to why I said I was an All-American. It was so difficult, and the rules were real simple. As soon as you've had enough, leave and don't come back. Just like the Navy SEALs. As soon as you're tired and you can't go on, get your stuff and go, but don't come back. So we only did 3 things, and we did them for 3 days. We had to do squats. And on the squats, I particularly remember we took a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, turned it upside down, put it on the ground. When you squatted, you had to come up on your toes, and you had to throw your hands up like this, and your butt had to touch the bucket. Once it touches, that's a squat, stand back up. We would do 50 of those. And I remember you can't see the bucket. And the lip of the bucket, because it was upside down, I went into that thing so many times, it cut into my butt. It was so painful. We did that. You get down and do 25 push-ups, you turn over, you do 25 sit-ups, you stand back up, and you do it all over again. And within the first session, you got a water break after 30 minutes or something. I mean, there's little breaks in there, but this is all we did. Go right back to it and do it all in this little tiny space. We had 21 guys that showed up on the time I was there. After the first session, 5 were left. There was only 5. After the first day, 3 were left. After the second day, the same 3 were left, and on the third day, one of the guys didn't show up. He just simply didn't come. There was me and a guy from Jamaica. We made it through. They assessed us, and they invited us back to train. I had 2 years of college, so by the time I had finished, WCW was out of business. And quite frankly, without the world of social media, I didn't even know how to get a hold of them. I didn't know anybody in the wrestling business. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know how to go about it, so I just went a different route.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was hard, though, man. I will tell you, it was really hard. Like, even the guy from Jamaica, I'd love to know his backstory. And I never caught his name or anything. There was no social, there was no talk. It was just two guys there. And I didn't even know his name. I haven't seen him on TV, so I imagine his story was similar to mine. For whatever reason, he didn't go back, but I don't believe that he did go back because I haven't seen him since. But I never even caught his name, so I got to just call him the guy from Jamaica. That's how I knew him.
Wow.
Nonetheless, Chael, I'm pretty sure you would have dominated the wrestling circuit anyways, my man.
I'd have taken over.
Absolutely.
I'd have taken over that business.
If I had it my way, I would say you should have been the one to break the Undertaker's streak, in my opinion, man.
Hey, I still hate that booking. I resent that the Undertaker should be 24-0 at WrestleMania and 50-0 before it's all over. I hate that booking. I didn't like it the night that happened. I still don't agree with it.
I agree with you, brother. I agree.
That is a great point right there.
Detroit does not lose on Thanksgiving, and The Undertaker does not lose at WrestleMania. Everyone knows that.
True. Very true.
Oh, man. One more thing, Chael.
All right.
I gotta, let's take away the whole trip down memory lane thing for a second and fast forward to 20 years now, because you've really earned a reputation as far as trash talk in the whole MMA world nowadays as well. Now, I mean, plenty of media outlets out there could also quote unquote a lot of what you've said over the years as well. Do you have any particular quotes over the years that you feel like have a favorite by any chance?
I have a favorite. No, I don't know about that. And I always appreciate that. And I know when someone tells me that it's meant as a compliment. But internally, I always take it because I never wanted to be the best trash talker. I wanted to be the best fighter.
You are.
You ended up with the booby prize. Right? I was the second best fighter for a while, but I never got over that hump. So I guess I'll have to take the trash talk. It's the one that I got. But I don't know that I have a favorite that I used. I'll tell you who I really appreciated as a trash talker, and I've never thought he fully got his credit. Like, people ask me, who's better between you and Connor? Go, okay, I'll have that conversation, but I feel like you're leaving someone out, and that's Rampage. I always felt like Rampage was one of the originals. He was a guy that could bring charisma. He was a guy that could smile to your face and get you laughing while he was stabbing you in your back, but it would take you 2 minutes to realize what just happened. Rampage was so good at it. I can remember having friends over for a UFC. He'd get done with a fight, and we'd all go, shush, shush, shush. We shush everybody down and turn the TV up to hear what his interview was going to be. And it was always something funny. It was always something off the cuff. It was just great. And I always thought that Rampage should have been included in that. And I will tell you one Connor line, by the way, that was fantastic, but he did it on a small show, and nobody really picked up on it. He was getting ready to fight Poirier. And he said, I don't have a problem with Poirier. He seems like a perfect, nice little hillbilly from a circus town. And he moved right on to whatever he was saying, but he called him a hillbilly from a circus town. I thought that was a great line that nobody ever heard.
I think one of my favorites of yours is, I think you were referring to Anderson. It may have even been Jones, but you said he's going to be shaking hands with Jesus.
Yeah.
I always love that one.
Or the man further south.
Yes, the man down. Yes, absolutely.
You could pretty much choose anything from the UFC 117 pre-fight conference that Chael said.
That's legendary right there.
As the best quotes. You had Thiago Alves cracking up next to you during that whole conference.
That was a fun press conference, man. That was a fun time. That was another motivation for me to be champion, was to get more of those press conferences, right? Just to have more of those opportunities. It was so much fun. The build-up and all that kind of stuff was so much fun. The fight itself isn't as fun. We say we love it, but that's because we're trying to convince ourselves. The fight, there's no fun in a cage fight, half naked in front of the world. Come on. The build-up for it can be a pretty good time.
Absolutely.
Chet, you fought a bunch of people in your career. Is there anyone that you wanted to fight, or even thinking today that you would have liked to fight that you never got a chance to? I know I have one particular fight in mind that I would have liked to have seen that never happened, but do you have anybody?
I was in the green room at Fox. They called it the avocado room. which, by the way, didn't even have green paint on it. I have no idea why it was called the avocado room. But I was in the avocado room at Fox. Jon Anik was there.
Mhm.
And Jon Anik made a comment to me. And he goes, you know, your career will never be complete until you fight Vitor Belfort and Wanderlei Silva. And as soon as he said it, I just accepted it as truth. Like, it was an off-the-hand comment. I don't even know if I responded back. But when he said that to me, I believed him. And I thought, okay, this is what I have to do for my career to be complete. And I had a contract to fight Vitor. But the fight never happened. I think I ended up on a suspension, or I think I'm the one that blew the fight. But I always believed Anik. And I said, you know what? Until I fight Vitor, my career will never be complete. So if I had one left on the table, and by the way, I got no heat with Vitor. Every time I meet him, he's nothing but a gentleman. I got no heat with him. But to answer your question, I suppose it'd be Vitor.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Very interesting. So, Chael, this is a sports podcast in general, and everything under that umbrella. Combat sports, traditional team sports. Are there any traditional team sports that you're still interested in today?
I never really followed team sports. By example, I've never seen a football game in my life. I've never seen a basketball game, which drives my uncle crazy. My uncle won an Olympic gold medal in basketball and 2 NBA championships in basketball. So that drives him bonkers. I've tried. I've gone to football games. I've gone to basketball games. I just can't get through them. So I'm not a huge team sports guy. I do really enjoy gymnastics. I only get to see gymnastics during the Olympic Games. I don't even know if it's ever televised anywhere. If it is, I don't know where to find it. But I do really enjoy gymnastics and anything that's like that. Trampoline, by example, competitive diving, by example, anything with that manipulation of the body, taking yourself, working against gravity, and returning to Earth safely. I find gymnastics to be the ultimate sport.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that on one of your podcasts, talking about what sport to get into would make MMA easier, and you had mentioned gymnastics and George St. Pierre doing all that. So it's interesting. It's very true too.
I think it is. I mean, I've got my kids in gymnastics already. They're very young, 5 and 2. You can't do a lot within it. It's a lot of stretching and running around. But I just believe it. I just really believe in that body control. I really respect the balance. I respect the strength. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of hard work. And I just feel like if you do gymnastics for a period of time, anything else you choose in life is going to be easy. And I was a wrestler, but anybody that came into wrestling, I only met 2 or 3 people in my whole life that had a gymnastics background first. I mean, they were a handful on day one. They just understood strength. They just understood balance. They understood timing. If you threw them through the air and they've got to learn how to tuck and roll and come out in one piece, they just knew how to do that on day one. I've just always respected that sport.
Well, yeah, it's true. Very true. I have a very random question, but we're all about randomness on this podcast. Is Taco Bell a post-fight ritual for you?
Okay, so here's the thing. First off, Taco Bell's awesome. But
I agree.
Here's why it became a ritual. Like, if you fight on the East Coast, sometimes you won't even walk to the ring until 12:15 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you get done and you go through the commission and you do the drug test, you go to post-fight press con, it can be 2 or 3, and Taco Bell happens to be open late. So, yeah, I usually do end up at Taco Bell. That's true.
You a fan of the Mountain Dew Baja Blast?
I like the Mountain Dew. Any way you want to do Mountain Dew. You dip a car part in Mountain Dew and I'll drink it. Mountain Dew's fantastic. The best thing on the Taco Bell menu, and this isn't new, but I suspect you guys probably haven't heard of it, it's just called a Mexi Melt. It's 99 cents. It looks like a burrito. You would need 5 of them to get full. It looks like a burrito, but they steam it. So the tortilla is a little bit different. It's fantastic. I would definitely recommend you get yourself a bag full of Mexi Melts. Get that Mountain Dew, Baja Fresh, as you put it. Supreme it, so it comes with a little tomato, little sour cream.
Okay.
Chael, not for nothing, I'm considering that to be my next hangover meal.
Best item on all of Taco Bell menu. They never advertise it.
I'm a big quesarito fan myself. I like the quesarito.
I haven't tried that, but I will tonight.
It's tremendous. So before we let you go, we have a segment on this podcast. It's called the Core 4. And each show, we come up with a different topic, and we all pick our 4. On our last episode, we had, it's very fitting with what's going on in the world. The 4 athletes we would like to be quarantined with. So I know you weren't really prepared for this. We were. So I want to know your athletes, past or present, that you would like to be quarantined with.
Okay. I'm going to throw Dominic Moceanu in there. I knew her. We were both at the Olympic Training Center together and are still friends to this day. So I'll throw Dom in there because she actually has a brain on her head. So you'll have somebody to visit with that won't know. I would probably throw, let's see here. I'd probably throw Dennis Rodman in there just for a chance to win the pass. And if we were quarantined, nobody could stop me. I wouldn't mind pushing his face in the sand a few times. And I would imagine that I'd have to bring a friend or two with me, right? I'd probably have to bring a Gilbert Melendez or an Eddie Alvarez or a Jake Shields with me. But that would be about it. I will tell you, of all the people you want to meet in your life, athletes should be at the bottom of the list, man. They're stupid and they're boring for the most part. Broad stroke right there, but you're talking about a group of dum-dums.
That's probably the best advice I'm going to get right now, man.
There's a reason they make their money wearing sneakers, okay? Because that's all they're capable of doing, in all fairness. Here, put some shoes on it. I'll give you some money. I think I can do that. Which one goes on my left foot? I mean, it's that kind of situation.
I hear you, brother.
Chael, one second, bro.
Go.
Chael, before we wrap up here, there's a big fight card tomorrow. Former world champions, the main event, and Tyron Woodley. Any thoughts on the card in general tomorrow?
Lot better main event than a lot of people think. Perception is reality, particularly within combat. If I give you 10 names, you're going to rank those guys based on who have you heard of the most. Whoever has the biggest name gets the bigger ranking. That's just a real thing. And many people don't know who Gilbert Burns is. He's won 7 of his last 8 fights, but 5 of those were on the undercard. And of those 8 fights, several of them were at 155 pounds. And people just don't know, man, this is a killer. This is the dark horse of the division. And he's motivated. He's got ice running through his vein. He does not give a damn. This is his first main event. He does not give a damn it's against a world champion. He doesn't care in the least. He's going to go out there and try to beat you. I think there's also a question of how is Tyron going to bounce back? Anytime a guy gets beat, his next performance is very telling. Is he hanging his head or did he use that as a springboard to remotivate him and get him back in there? I trust that Tyron is motivated. I've known Tyron a long time. I think he's a complete stud. I trust that he's going to pass this test, but make no mistake, he's being tested.
Yeah, especially with all the stuff he has going on outside the octagon, going into this fight, his music career, and just he's been everywhere, like on TV shows now. So who knows how much focus he has right now.
Right. And I take him at his word. He says what you just said. He said, look, I took my eye off the ball and it cost me. I'm refocused. I realized, what my number one bread and butter is here. It's competing. My window's closed. I take him at his word. I've seen his body. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, man, this guy's more than ready to go. But there's also the psychological side. Tyron has always done better when he's the underdog, when guys are counting him out. I mean, think back to the Darren Till fight. He was a 2.5-to-1 dog. And even the organization had thought that Till was going to grab that belt and run on with it. And Tyron rises to that occasion. Tyron's the favorite here. I think Tyron just operates a little better when people are counting him out. That's a little bit of an intangible. We're splitting hairs. Doesn't make a big difference. But in a fight that's close, those hairs matter.
Chael, we can't thank you enough for coming on. Give us the time.
Yeah, we take a minute and try.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
so much, Chael.
You know where to find me. Thanks, fellas. Keep up the good work.
Yes, we would love to have you on again sometime.
Thank you, Chael. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Chael.
Thank you. Welcome back, guys. Before we get to the core 4, I want to thank Chael Sonnen. We all want to thank Chael Sonnen for an amazing interview. We hope to have you back again soon. But right now, because of Chael Sonnen, we're going to go to our core 4 of bad guys, villains, people that always went the other way, the opposite of good. We're going to go with that this week as our core 4, a little tribute to Mr. Chael P. Sonnen, the bad guy.
All right, so today's core 4, like Gary said, is the top villains. And I'm going to randomize the order like I always do.
Like you always do, right.
So we got, me first, Gary second, Edward P. Roldan third, and Ryan last.
Again, I got last again. All right.
Last
All right.
again.
I hope no one takes my pick, though. I got a number 1 pick here that you guys will appreciate.
I know I got 2 that none of y'all will get. Well, actually 3.
You have Hector on this list?
No, Hector's not on this list.
Shout out to Hector.
So first pick, where do I start? I mean, I guess I'll get my my sports pick out of the way first, since this is a sports podcast. Actually, I don't think you know where I'm going, Bri. It's a baseball player.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going.
And he's actually he made my list last core 4.
Oh.
Yeah. A-Rod, bro.
Oh, come on, man.
Hey, let me explain. Let me explain. Give me a second. Up until the year 2004, I hated A-Rod, especially when he won in 2003 the MVP instead of Jorge Posada, who I think really deserved it that year. I almost freaking cried when they announced those results because I really wanted Posada to win it, but A-Rod won it, and I hated him because of that. And then 2 months later, he gets traded to the Yankees. So I was like, all right, let me give this guy a chance. I mean, throughout his Yankee career, he was always a villain. Even amongst Yankee fans, he was a villain. Like 90% of the fan base hated him.
Mm-hmm.
And he continually choked in the playoffs every single year. He never came up clutch for us.
Especially Cleveland.
He had great regular seasons, don't get me wrong.
Right.
You know, 2005 and 2007, he had amazing regular seasons, MVP seasons, but he never took that next step in the playoffs until 2009 came, where he was completely unstoppable and literally won us all 3 series, ALDS, ALCS, and World Series. And he won us a championship. And, I mean, ever since then, I love the guy. I mean, even before that, I was starting to warm up to him a little bit. But even more so after his playing career, he completely turned a 180. He's not a villain anymore. A lot of people seem to like him now.
Yeah. I wonder if J-Lo has anything to do with that.
No, he's a student of the sport, man. That's what I like about him.
He's a professor of the sport.
He's a professional.
I always liked A-Rod.
So, with that being said, A-Rod, the #1 baseball villain of all time, in my opinion. You either love him or you hate him. There's no in between.
Very great, justifiable pick right there, Pete.
Thank you.
I'm gonna challenge you on your baseball villain of all time.
Oh God.
With mine. I'm going Mr. George Steinbrenner, the boss.
Okay.
That's who I'm going with. And you know what? As a Yankee fan, I freaking loved it. He didn't care what he had to do, the money he had to spend. He had somebody go get information on Dave Winfield to go against him. He didn't care. And that's the kind of owner I want. All he cares about, all he wants is just to win. He'll spend the money. There's some off seasons where I miss him because he'll just take that extra money and he'll go spend it. He'll get the guys he wants to win. He doesn't care if you hate him. As a Yankee fan, I love it that everybody hates us because we do what we want to do to win. We don't buy championships. We go and get them. That's the message from the boss. So I'm going with George Steinbrenner.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. baby.
We miss you, boss.
Oh, definitely. This whole negotiation thing would have been over with if he was around.
Eddie, you're on the
since we're all trying to get our sports pick out of the way, being how this is a sports podcast, I'm going to go with LeBron James as my sports pick right now, man.
I was saving that for you, Eddie.
Wait a minute. Never mind the fact of my personal reasons for him being a villain.
What are that, real quick?
Wait, what?
What's your personal reasons? He didn't tip you at Must Make a Grow one time?
Listen. I've got bullet points for this shit right now, man. LeBron, I mean, I give it to him, man. I can't believe I'm going to fucking admit this shit right now, man. But listen, he is a top 3 player in the entire world. But I question a lot of his decisions as far as free agency and whatnot is concerned. Specifically the 2010 season, man. Like, I mean, for God's sake, man.
All it did was win 2 championships.
Win 2 championships. He needed Wade and Bosh to win that championships, man. Come on. Not to mention he lost to the Mavs that one year, too. Only Dirk. Just saying, man. Just saying. But, I mean, you really didn't need a whole ESPN special just to announce your fucking decision, for God's sakes, man. Like, come on, man. Between that and then, you know, you did what you did in Miami. You went back to Cleveland. All right. You got your championship in Cleveland as well. But for some reason, Kyrie never gets the respect that he deserves for winning that series, too.
I agree.
So,
Kyrie, get the
you know, and just for the record, fuck you, Kyrie, too, you know, just for this year. But yeah, LeBron James, number 4, numero cuatro.
All right.
You got 2 picks, Brian.
I got 2 picks coming up. I'm gonna keep it sports oriented for now, and I'm actually surprised you guys didn't pick this because I remember when this specific incident happened. I mean, I was only 10, but I was fuming, and I'm talking about Pedro Martinez.
That was gonna be my pick.
Especially when he threw Don Zimmer to the ground. I remember watching it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even a 10-year-old me, understood what was going on, and what a piece of trash.
You know what, Brian? That's a good pick, but the reason why he didn't make my list is because he was a villain, but the Yankees always beat him.
Yeah, owned him.
2003, we owned him. We were his daddy. 2009, when he went to the Phillies, we beat him in the World Series again.
To win the World Series.
So in order to be a villain, it has to be – actually, now that I think of it, I just thought of another villain. I'm not going to say it, but in order to be a villain, you have to beat somebody – that you care about, in my opinion. And Pedro never beat us.
No, but to back Brian up on this, man, didn't he strike out the Yankees at least 15 times?
In 99 times? Yeah, in 99.
Yeah, but I mean, but in a regular season game you're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, he still beat us, though.
Okay.
I'm talking about just the way his personality came off, the whole Don Zimmer thing. I mean, of course we kicked his ass. We kicked his ass. I'm not talking about that.
God.
But that's not what I'm basing it off of. So I'm picking Pedro Martinez.
Real quick, he's the best pitcher I've seen with my eyes.
No, his skill. I'm not taking anything away.
Right.
From him. He's tremendous. Absolutely.
Just watch the movement on his pitches in the late 90s, early 2000s. Oh my God!
I'll go very specific. 2003, Pedro Martinez is my villain.
That two-seam fastball in his prime, though, man.
Oh, the guy's insane.
Freaking ridiculous, man.
My number 2 pick is no surprise. I'm going with Jon Jones.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy, bro. He is the bad guy. I don't think I have to elaborate on this. This guy's gotten in more trouble than Al Capone. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I'm just going to leave it right there.
That Al Capone?
Eddie, you're on the clock.
All right. That was a good one, Brian. All right. For my second one, I'm going to go away from the sports with this one, though. And I'm not going to go with any obvious answers as far as villains is concerned. But I am going to go with this one badass villain that pretty much started off a pretty good I want to say trilogy, but they push it a little too far though. I'm going to go with Hans Gruber. No, Hans Gruber, Die Hard, the first one. Hans Gruber was a badass though.
And Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie.
Thank you. It is a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. You can't go wrong with a movie with Professor Snape, Bruce Willis, and Carl Winslow all together. Man.
You got my vote. You got my vote.
That, man. Like, I'm
going
to go with Hans Gruber as
my
second pick.
Big Carl Winslow fan.
I appreciate that pick, Eddie.
All right, I'm going next. I think we're all going to appreciate it. I think Brian and Eddie are really going to appreciate this one. I'm going to say the NWO. NWO. They changed the bit. They were bad guys that everybody wound up cheering. They changed the business of wrestling. They made wrestling as big as any sport at the time. Their impact, the NWO, they came on. Everybody hated them. People throwing debris in the ring. I remember when I was little. I remember when I was 5 years old, not really understanding Bash at the Beach at the time. All I remember is Hogan's in the ring, and I'm watching my cousins, and they're all big Hogan fans. They just see trash being thrown at him. That's the impact and anger they got out of people. They changed a business to make it. It's a part of why it's the reason how it's so big today. So I'm going NWO.
Going back to Hogan, something that Cena should have fucking done, but.
By the way, shout out to John Cena donating all that money to Shaq Gaspard's family. That was amazing.
Word.
Yeah, anonymously.
Yeah.
All right, so I got 2 picks.
Yeah.
All right, so the first one I'm gonna bring it back to the movies. It's actually my favorite Disney animated movie, Aladdin. and I'm gonna go with Jafar. Jafar is the ultimate villain. The guy was
God.
listen, hear me out for a second. The guy was like almost 60 years old, and he tricked the Sultan into marrying his 17-year-old daughter. The guy was like 60.
You're right, though.
And then he tried to literally assassinate Aladdin twice. And this is all in a kid's movie. Remind you that this is a
very
kid's movie.
passionate about.
Times were different back then, man.
This is a kid's
Times were
movie.
different.
You have a pedophile trying to marry a young girl. You have the same guy trying to kill another kid twice. And then at the same time, he's hypnotizing people. He's putting curses on people. And then at the end of the movie, he turns into a giant freaking snake. Bro,
I
it's
forgot
like,
about that shit. Oh my god, man.
We're not going to talk about Return of Jafar, the sequel.
I was just about it. You stole it from me. Man.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
Those are straight to VHS sequels. We don't talk about those. I'm talking about the original
I
Aladdin.
still got that VHS, by the way.
Although the Aladdin and the 40 Thieves was not bad, where he
It
meets his
wasn't.
father. That's actually a pretty good movie.
You know why that wasn't bad? Because Robin Williams came back to voice the genie in that movie.
Yeah, the voice acting was.
Whereas the other one, you had Homer Simpson voicing the genie. Which,
Yep.
no disrespect to Dan Castellaneta.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
No disrespect to him. You know, I love The Simpsons, my favorite cartoon of all time, the old one.
But there's only one genie.
But there's only one genie. It's Robin Williams. Rest in peace to him. One of my favorite actors, by the way. Shout out to him.
Yes.
But, so Jafar from Aladdin. I mean, the ultimate Disney villain badass, bro. The guy was just evil. He was sick. Sick
I like
and
that
evil.
pick.
But going back to sports for a second, I actually thought of this pick when I was talking to Brian before. I mean, any Yankee fan, the ultimate villain to any Yankee fan, especially growing up in the 90s and 2000s, well, more so the 2000s, David Ortiz, bro. Big Papi. Big Papi made me cry so many times as a teenager, man. Like, he really did. Walk-off home runs against us, 2004.
2004, man.
Constantly owning Majorano Rivera, bro. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. He was just something else. In the clutch, man, he always came through against us, and he really hurt me, bro. He really hurt me.
By the way, he is a PED user. I don't know why nobody else brings that up.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
It was proven that he used PEDs, but people just put that under the.
And he was in the fucking report too, man. Like, I don't understand this, man. Oh,
I agree.
God, man.
Gary, you're up.
I'm going a little keeping it sports, cartoons, movies. I'm going with the Monstars from Space.
That's a good pick.
All right. Let's really break down what they did. They took talents away from some of the best basketball players in the world. They try to end the Looney Tunes, and they try to take Michael Jordan away from us. Like, honestly, if they would have got their way, America would not be the same as we know it today. We wouldn't have got The Last Dance. We wouldn't have the Looney Tunes. Charles Barkley wouldn't be on TNT. So they really are like some really diabolical people. So I'm going with the Monstars. They really tried to end civilization as we know it.
But you see, I agree with you, Gary. But to be honest with you, Danny DeVito was more of a villain in that movie than the actual Monstars, though.
Got a point.
He's got a good point.
Yeah, but
it's true.
But I get what Gary's saying, though, too.
If they would have got their way, like, what would be like? We would have had The Last Dance. Like, it would just be everything would not be the same right now.
No, you're right. You're right.
Nobody's childhood would be good with the Looney Tunes gone.
Oh, not to mention great soundtrack on that first movie.
Oh, well, I've been singing it on PlayStation, playing during the
you definitely have Seals somewhere in your playlist on your phone.
I got the Space Jam soundtrack on my Apple Music.
Oh my God.
You're up, Eddie.
My pick?
Yep.
All right, for my third pick. Again, I'm gonna go a little away from the sports aspect of this whole thing. And I'm gonna go with Alonzo Harris. Training Day, Denzel Washington for this one, man.
Great.
That's a great movie. Great pick.
Great movie. Not taking anything away from Ethan Hawke because, I mean, at the time, that was probably his main role right there, man. I mean, that kind of put him on the map, though, man. Like,
yeah, he was around for a minute, but that movie, that was his breakout movie.
It really was, though, bro. My only pet peeve about the whole Alonzo Harris character itself, though, my opinion, Denzel should have won an Oscar years before Training Day anyways.
Yeah. Denzel is not to take away your spot. Denzel's always been in my top 5 actors, always, and for him to be a villain was like unheard of, and he killed it. He really.
I just felt it was kind of far fetched, the fact that he had to he basically won the Best Actor award, but as a dirty cop though.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man.
I guess
That's
because
ridiculous.
it showed that he can do it all.
Mhm.
I guess I don't know. That's my take.
I agree with you on that, though. If I'm not mistaken, that's probably his first heel role. So to
Yeah,
say.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but he did great, though, man. You could quote that movie for days, man.
Yeah. Great movie. So since Eddie's bringing movies up, I might as well get right into it. And I'm going to go with the biggest, baddest of them all, Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars.
Okay, all right.
I mean, this guy, he's
was on my
literally
list.
been around since the original movies, from the beginning all the way to
On
the
your
ass
list.
end of it. He died, and he came back. He's so badass. And he's just the most evil person in the galaxy.
Yep.
I'm going with Emperor Palpatine.
I agree with you. Too bad he came back in the worst movie of the entire series.
Oh,
Hey,
come on,
Episode
man.
9 was good.
Oh, come on. It
Episode
should've been
8, we're not gonna
much
talk
better,
about.
man.
Don't
Episode
talk
8
about don't talk about episode 9.
Gary was actually there for that one. All right.
Yeah.
So
Physically, but not mentally.
I have a lot of names here, so I guess I'll use them for honorable mentions. I wanted to spread it out a little bit. I got my 2 sports picks. I got my 1 movie. I'm gonna go video games. I'm going Bowser.
I had him on my list. I had Bowser on my list.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
I mean, listen. When you're thinking video game villains,
Fuck.
you think of Bowser. He's capturing the princess. He's trying to get a piece of that. He's trying to stop Mario. Every game is the same thing, but he doesn't stop. He's relentless. I gotta go Bowser.
He was on my
I was gonna
honorable
say Wario.
mentions.
Wario, get out of here.
Don't talk bad about Wario.
I like Wario. I'm a Wario guy.
All-time favorite right there. Don't say a bad
That's
thing.
Gary's
about Wario.
Mario Party go-to right
Oh,
now.
Wario Party, Mario Kart, always Wario. Shout out to Wario. Hopefully he gets on the pod.
Eddie, last pick.
pick. Charles Martinet, actually, we are going to get you on the pod. I'm coming
Yes.
for you.
Well. All right, so it's my last pick, correct?
Yes.
I was in a little bit of a seesaw effect with this one, especially. I didn't know whether to go with movie character or to continue on with the sports. But again, this is a sports podcast. So as for my number 1 villain of all time, I'm talking to you, Rocky. The Dallas Cowboys, man. I'm so sick of these guys, man. Like, yo, every single year it's like Super Bowl or bust. Super Bowl or bust. It's always a bust, man. Like, yo, how many times could you possibly say that? Now, I know how it feels. I am a Knicks fan at the end of the day, though. But, I mean, come on, bro. Like, it's just ridiculous. You're not America's team. Stop trying to push Dak Prescott down our throats like he's the second coming of Pat Mahomes, man. Like,
Shout out
it's
Patty
ridiculous,
Mahomes.
man. It's ridiculous, man. So I'm a go with the Dallas Cowboys, number 1 villain.
I like that.
All right. This is going to be a little bit of a surprising pick. All right. I don't want to offend anybody with this. I'm going Bob Barker as a villain.
What?
Now,
Oh, you said Bob Barker from The Price is Right?
yes.
Rest in peace.
Listen,
Gary, get
he
your
died?
dog spayed and
Wait a minute, he's
neutered.
dead?
Yeah, bro, he's been dead.
Yeah, he died dead a couple of years ago. He died dead.
That is.
Eddie's Googling it right now.
Eddie, I'm sorry to break the news to you, but he did die dead a couple of years ago.
that wasn't the point of this, to break the news to Eddie. Can I explain to you why he's my villain?
Are you against spaying and neutering pets?
First of all, what he did to Happy Gilmore was fucked up. That's gonna
He's
start off
not
like-
dead, motherfucker, man.
He's not?
dead, man. No.
Wait, what?
Man.
Yes, he is.
No, I can't see that. But this has got to be some Mandela effect or something.
Google never tells the truth.
He's
Anyway.
96 years old.
Can I
man.
get my point out?
Gary,
Bob
spit it
All
out.
right.
Wait, who said
I
he
can't-
died?
Pete did.
Oh, yeah, he is 96. He didn't die dead.
I'm trying to explain myself here.
Gary, no one wants to hear it. The big news here is Bob Barker's alive.
There wasn't news that he was dead.
It was for a second. We broke it.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Pete. Thanks a lot.
First of all, fighting Happy Gilmore in the time of his life at that golf course was messed up, but I'm still mad at him about that. Second of all, he gets everybody's hopes up with the price being right. And he always gets them, oh, we can win this gift. But they don't. So you know what? He's really not a nice person. Second of all, third of all, he punched Chris Jericho in the face. So you know what? That really wasn't nice. So he's got very
about that,
evil
man.
tendencies. If you do a deep dive up Bob Barker, you find out he's not a nice person. I'm coming.
Oh, I forgot about that, man.
The call out of the 96-year-old Bob Barker.
Oh my
Wow.
God. Man.
Unprecedented.
Very professional, Gary.
Oh my
I'll see you
God.
somewhere, Bob.
Pete, take us home.
Your
Well,
price will be right.
Speaking of staying on the wrestling topic, I'm going to go with a wrestling guy right now.
Oh, wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute.
Being that, when I was a kid, my favorite wrestler was none other than The Rock. And he had a very tense rivalry with someone in the WWF, Triple H. Triple H, bro.
Ah, okay.
I think you're going Austin there.
I love Austin.
What?
But listen, The Rock and Triple H, to me, was the ultimate rivalry. They always had these awesome main event matches going back and forth. I mean, The Rock won most of them, I think. He might have lost a few big ones. It might have been the other way around. I don't know.
It was pretty even. It was pretty even.
My memory, fades a little bit. But,
Don't forget Judgment Day 2000, man. That's what I'm saying.
I do remember whatever event it was, Triple H beat The Rock, and I was very upset, and it still resonates with me to this day. So with that being said, Triple H is my personal villain.
Not
Or heel, as you call it.
Before we wrap this up, I want to get my honorable mentions out there.
Me too.
Yeah. I had John Rocker from the Braves. I remember as a kid, a young kid, asking my mom, "Why do we hate this guy?" And I remember
hates New Yorkers.
Yeah, his mouth got him into trouble, and he was just not the nicest guy.
He said some mean things about New Yorkers.
Yeah, a few times I rooted for the Mets was when.
Yeah, and my mother's a Met fan, so.
Well, he
shout
played
out to
the Yankees.
Long Island Ducks for him, man.
That 99 World Series.
99 World Series. He faced the Yankees.
Yeah, but so I had him. I had Eddie can attest to this. I have Seth Rollins on here, and I'm not even talking about his in-ring. I mean, I think he's a great heel in the ring, but as a person in general, especially to fans, what a piece of trash this guy is. And now I normally welcome anything and anyone on this podcast. But Seth Rollins, you are never welcome on this podcast. Never.
I agree with you, man.
But if you want to come on, you and Brian can fix your grievances on here.
No, because I have a couple words for him as well.
So there you go.
He's a
after
piece
the
of trash.
conversations I've heard with him in the elevator, bro.
Yeah.
It's not cool, bro.
Straight up and down. He doesn't appreciate the fans that made him who he is.
He doesn't. He just really doesn't.
I got that out there. I'm also going Swiper from Dora the Explorer. I mean, he's always swiping things. He always ruins the whole thing, the whole adventure for her. And then we have Thanos from the Avengers and all the Marvel movies. He's the biggest, baddest of them all, besides the Emperor. And my last one, Roger Goodell. And I'm just going to drop the mic on that one.
That's a great one, honestly, Brian. That might be the best one.
Listen, El Presidente, Portnoy, Barstool Sports, we would love to have you on. We welcome the doors, always open for you.
Well, on the topic of honorable mentions, I'm going to say whoever's seen the movie, one of the greatest movies of all time, The Shawshank Redemption.
Great movie.
I'm going to go with the Warden. Warden in the prison, bro. I hated that guy with a passion.
That's a great
one, Pete.
How he treated Andy Dufresne, knowing that he was innocent, and he still made him his bitch, and he kept him in jail longer than he should have been. But, I was just so happy when he finally blew his brains out in his office at the end of the movie.
I agree with you, brother.
He deserved worse.
Watch that in Bishop Ford movie class.
Yeah.
Mr. Busso. Shout out Mr. Busso.
Great freaking movie, by the way. One of my favorite movies of all time. And also, I'm going to say, one of my honorable mentions was Bowser. But since Brian mentioned it already, I'm going to go over to the other popular Nintendo series, Zelda. I'm going to go with Ganondorf.
Great.
Oh.
The ultimate villain, Ganondorf. He's almost in every single Zelda game, and he's pretty badass.
Pete, I'm gonna be honest. I'm surprised you didn't say Dr. Evil.
Well, he's not. He's not a villain. He's more of a lovable. I mean, in Goldmember, he turns out to be Austin's brother, and he turns good. So
for most of the series, he was a villain.
I love
Dr.
The third movie was listen, everything, man. Like,
no, shut up. Shut up. I love Goldmember, and I love the second one as well.
Stop it. The first and second, and that's it, man.
No, they're all great.
The first one was kind of
No, it wasn't.
The first one, a lot of the jokes were a little cringy, but the second and the third were amazing.
Yeah.
What?
I agree.
So cringy. What?
I don't know when he's trying to pull that old lady's face off, thinking it's a mask. Bro. That was so stupid. That was so stupid.
Oh, stop it, man! Come on, man.
Listen, I digress. Mike Myers is also one of my favorite actors, and I would love for him to make another Austin Powers movie, but he'll never do it. But those are my honorable mentions.
That's a man, baby. Come on, man. It's nothing. Come
Go for it, Gary.
Man.
The guy who snipes you in Call of Duty. When you don't realize that you get sniped once, you're down, and then gets you again. That guy really grinds my gears.
Okay.
Well, I got three honorable ones. I got three of them. Number 3 being the Joker. I mean, that's pretty obvious, though, man. Like,
he's not a villain in my eyes.
I mean, he makes a lot of sense with why he is the way that he is.
I like the Joker.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you're still a fucking mass murderer anyways. But Kaiser Sosa, man. Kaiser Sosa from The Usual Suspects, man. Nobody saw that ending coming. I mean, I tried to think that it was coming, but I just never thought it was Kevin Spacey at the end of the day. And my number 1, as far as honorable mentions, Vince McMahon. That's it.
Also,
no chance.
That's it.
It's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah, great episode, guys.
So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Real quick, I ask you for a favor from all of us. Go to Twitter, mention the gentleman on the Manscaped page. Get Manscaped to sponsor your boys. Just throwing it out there. But guys, thank you for all 10 episodes. Thank you to Chael Sonnen. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. And remember, we are the gentlemen.
This is the podcast.
This is the podcast, man.
Bob
Shout
Barker,
out to
coming after
Chael,
you.
man. Oh man, I'm drinking.
Chael, thank you.
Chael.
Chael, thank you. Bob Barker, I see you, Bob Barker.
Salute you, Chael.
Very much alive. Very much alive.
Yo, from the start, I'ma finish it. Yo, and from the start, I'ma finish it. Cause I'm a running man on a mission. From the start, I'ma finish it. From the start, I'ma finish it. Yo, and from the start, I'ma finish it. Cause I'm a running man on a mission. From the start,